All right, let's take a look at how XML is handled in Internet Explorer. Now that we've seen how Firefox handles XML, it's IE's turn. So to create a new XML document in Internet Explorer, you use a slightly different syntax. You use the ActiveX object to create an instance of the DOM document object type. And the most recent version of this is DOM document.60. The way that you do this is shown in the example down here. So I have a variable named XML doc, and instead of calling the document's implementation create document function like I do in Firefox, what I do here is create a new ActiveX object, and I pass in the string msxml2.domdocument.60. This will create an XML document the same as it does in Firefox. And in this example, you can see I'm doing pretty much the same kind of thing with creating document content using the DOM methods. From this point on, it's pretty much the same as it is in Firefox. So, here we are creating an element named the root tag and appending that into the document and creating a paragraph, creating some text, appending the text into the paragraph, and putting the paragraph into the document. So once you've got the document created, the DOM API for manipulating document content using the standard DOM functions is consistent across the browser. Now, just like Firefox, you can parse XML directly from a text string in Internet Explorer. And the way that you do that is actually really pretty straightforward. You don't have to create a DOM parser or anything like that. IE makes this pretty easy. All you need to do is create the XML document like you do in the previous example, and then it's a simple matter of calling the loadXML method on the document object. And in this case, I'm passing in a string which represents a functionally complete XML file. So these two lines of code do essentially what the Firefox example does, only we don't have to create any objects other than the document itself, because the XML document in IE has a convenience function that just loads XML right from a string. You can also load XML from a URL in Internet Explorer, just like you can in Firefox, and you use the load method. Now, amazingly enough, the code for Internet Explorer is exactly the same as that for Firefox. I know, it's amazing, but they got this both the same. The only difference is how you create the document. So you see here, I've got the ActiveX object, and in Firefox, you use the create document method. But other than that, it's exactly the same. The async property is the same, and the load method is the same. Now, again, the default behavior is to load documents asynchronously, so I need to explicitly set the async property to be false before I call the load method if I want this to be handled synchronously. And you can see that the example that I'm using here is the same as the example I used in the Firefox example. And of course, you can load a document asynchronously. It's a little more involved than what you need to do in Firefox, but not much. So here's the line of code where we create the XML document. In this case, I'm explicitly setting the async property to true because we want to load the document asynchronously. Now, instead of handling the onLoad event like you do in Firefox, we have an event here called onReadyStateChange. And this is Internet Explorer's way of handling the asynchronous events. So onReadyStateChange takes a function. I'm declaring that here. And inside the function, there's a property I check called ReadyState. And ReadyState can be one of a bunch of different values. And I won't go into all of them here because you can find documentation on that pretty easily. All you need to know is that when the ReadyState property is equal to 4, that means that the document has been fully loaded. And documents go through various stages. They go through, the request stage, the data is being downloaded stage, and so on. When state reaches 4, it's been loaded, and so we call our document loaded function with the document object as an argument, and then we go ahead and call the load function. And in this case, any statements that follow the load function will just go ahead and keep right on executing. So you don't want to execute any statements that depend on the document being loaded until your callback function has been called and the document has been fully loaded. Okay, so now that we've seen how Internet Explorer handles loading and creating and parsing XML, let's go take a look at some real-life examples on how to do this.